Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, your humble agent the Raven has returned with the final new episode of Clearing Out the Vault, covering both machine guns and rocket launchers this time around. So eyes up, Guardian, let's get this going. So starting off with the machine guns, and with that the ultra-high rate of fire of 100, impact 25. Held within is the Prestige 4 from Vanilla, the Song of Ear Ute from Crota's End off the Crota encounter, and onto the House of Wolves representation with the Culling, found from the Future War Cold vendor, Sawtooth Oscillator, found from the Vanguard Quartermaster, and the Back Scratcher 9.0, found as a Dragon Strike reward drop. So as our nifty table shows us, and I'm really starting to kind of get aggravated at these situations, well, we see that the Prestige has the fewest red bars and should be somewhat leader of the pack. We also have Song of Ear Ute, which has much stronger blue stat when compared, and the Sawtooth Oscillator not being a very bad runner-up to them. However, Song of Ear Ute, again holding blue bar stats in a lot of vital areas for this category of machine gun, but also taking a pretty massive hit when it comes to the inventory size. And let's not really talk about the Back Scratcher or the Culling, thanks to those stability ratings. I mean, goodness. So now we'll move on to the high rate of fire 88 machine guns, starting with the MG-18A Harm's Way from the Dark Below, Corrective Measure found from Vault of Glass during the Gatekeeper encounter, with House of Wolf representation with the Unending Deluge 3 found as a Dragon Strike reward drop, and the Arma Engine DOA found from the Dead Orbit vendor. Now we see that this class of MG actually has some highly fluctuating impact rates, not a very common sight. So as we see with the least amount of red bars, we have a tie between the Unending Deluge 3 and the Corrective Measure. Each is fairly comparable to one another, but with Unending Deluge actually holding some pretty strong leads in inventory and, of course, impact, and even magazine size. However, Corrective Measure's strongest points over the Unending Deluge goes to its aim assist and handling stat, with Harm's Way still making a pretty comparable choice with an impact between the two, and the Arma Engine quite bringing up the rear. And we'll move on to the rate of fire 77, impact 37 machine guns, occupied by Zombie Apocalypse WF-47 from Vanilla, and the Chain of Orbix Fell from House of Wolves, found off Varix for Weapon Core when available, or from a Judgment's Chance. And as we see that technically Chain of Orbix Fell is indeed the stat leader, the stat advantages that it has over the Zombie Apocalypse are actually quite minor, making them both comparable choices to one another in this very small category. And we move along to the rate of fire 66 high impact 53 model of machine guns. From Vanilla we have the Deviant Gravity A in the Swarm. Starting with House of Wolves representation, we have the BTRD 345, certainly not to be confused with this very stat different green MG of the same name, found from Crucible Match reward screens, the Pacifier X, or Pacifier 10, found from New Monarchy, and the Infinite or Infinite Theorem, the Trials of Osiris MG. We see that the Pacifier 10 holds the fewest red bars, without a lot of commanding stats, followed closely by not only the Deviant Gravity A, but also the Infinite Theorem, with the Theorem holding slightly stronger advantages in reload, bringing in the rears the BTRD and the Swarm, with the BTRD actually holding quite a few advantages over the Swarm itself, and quite a few commanding blue bar stats in general. Finishing off the machine guns are the rate of fire 59 ultra high impact of 61 category, occupied by Against All Odds from the Dark Below, Yolder's Hammer from the Iron Banner, and Wolf's Bane, the Queen's Wrath machine gun found from Prison of Elders big chests. So as we're brought to the table, we find something of a surprise that the Queen's Wrath MG is not last, and while tied with Yolder's Hammer for the least amount of red bar stats, actually holds a few leads in blue bar stats, and a couple of those leads, of course, not being stability or recoil direction. And though Against All Odds brings up the rear, with having a second best recoil direction and a better range out of them all, but really suffering to its stability. So now we move on to the rocket launchers of Destiny. Categorized primarily by its blast radius, we start with those with a blast radius 96 and rate of fire 18, with legacy content being Admonisher III, Valedictorian 9-44, Steel Oracle Z11, House of Wolves content The Last Rebellion, bought off Varix, and Uppercut payload found post-Crucible match reward drops. We also combined this with Blast Radius 96 and 191 with Rate of Fire 4, Radagast Fury found from the Iron Banner, Heathen Vengeance, found from the Vault of Glass during the Gatekeeper encounter, and House of Wolves representing the Ash Factory, Crucible Match Reward Drop, and the Dreamwaker, the Queen's Wrath rocket launcher found from Prison of Eldritch Key chests. This table has something of an extra feature considering rocket launchers themselves only have a few stats that primarily separate them. The primary focusing stats being blast radius, velocity, reload, handling for those tracking rockets, and inventory size. So as we see, your best choice is pretty much going to be the Steel Oracle Z11 with distant second coming to the last rebellion. The others just having quite a distant velocity to the rest, and with uppercut payload possibly being distant third choice for a tracking rocket launcher. And as we see from the Rate of Fire 4s, some of your best choices are going to be Heathen Vengeance, with Radagast Fury coming to a close second to that, the Ash Factory, and the Dreamwaker not trailing too far behind, surprisingly. Moving on to the Blast Radius 84 rocket launchers, we have the Unfriendly Giant representing the Legacy content, with the Wastelander V2V starting the House of Wolves content, findable from Dragon Strike reward screens, and Tomorrow's Answer, the Trials of Osiris rocket launcher. And combining these with the Blast Radius 68s, we have the Legacy content of The Cure, the Exodus Plan RS/1, the Dark Below Legacy being One-Way Ticket 000, the Hunger of Crota found from Crota's End, off Crota himself, and the House of Wolves representing the Fear, bottom the Future War Cult vendor. And bringing up the rear is the Blast Radius 60 rocket launcher, Pax Totalist EPR8 from House of Wolves content, bought from the Crucible Quartermaster. Now, in the Blast Radius 84s, we see that there isn't a whole lot of difference between the three of them, with the only feasible disadvantage coming from the Unfriendly Giants slacking reload speed, while a similar small spread is found in the Blast Radius 68s, with the Hunger of Crota leading the pack, but only barely against the Exodus Plan and the Fear. However, with Exodus Plan and the Fear's lower handling, they are a much preferred non-tracking rocket launchers. And then we have Pax Totalis, all by its lonesome, with the lowest blast radius, some of the lowest grade of velocity, having advantages in reload and its handling, but that's about it. Poor little guy. And there we have the finish of the machine guns and rocket launchers of Destiny, bringing the original series to a close. But then again, coming up next will be the recaps of the hand cannons and the auto rifles. So again, this bird's gotta flock off. Bright stars and safe journeys for you, Guardians.